Namaskar. Very good morning to all of you. I, Dr. Urmil Vats, on the behalf of the Internal Complaint Committee, Shama Prasad Mukherjee College, University of Delhi. It's a pride moment for me to welcome you all, especially Honorable Chief Guest, Professor Renu Deshwal ji, eminent scholar, Dr. Shuchi Kapuria ji, respected Principal Ma'am, Professor Sadhana Sharma ji, IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Subhasina ji, faculty members and their students. इस डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म पर आप सभी का हृदय से बहुत बहुत स्वागत, अभिनंदन, आभार। और तो जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि भारतीय संविधान के आर्टिकल 12 to 35 में फंडामेंटल राइट्स दिए गए हैं। इन्हीं आर्टिकल्स में आर्टिकल 14, 15, 19 और 21 ये हमारे लिए लाइफलाइन का काम करते हैं। हमारे आज के इस वेबिनार का विषय है कि इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट ऑफ वीमेन एट वर्क प्लेस एक्ट 2013, यह भी इसी से संबंधित है। इस पर विस्तार से चर्चा करने से पहले मैं प्रिंसिपल मैम प्रोफेसर साधना शर्मा जी, जो कि अपनी प्रखर दूरदृष्टि, कुशल नेतृत्व और साहित्य जगत में विशेष स्थान रखती हैं, उनसे विनम्र आग्रह करती हूँ कि मैम हमारे अतिथिगण का आप स्वागत करें व कुछ शब्दों से हमें अपने आशीर्वादों से सिखाएं। साधना मैम।
आईसीसी के द्वारा संयोजित इस कार्यक्रम में आप सब लोगों का बहुत बहुत स्वागत। रेणु देशवाल जी, कथुरिया जी जो हमारे गेस्ट हैं और हमारे स्पीकर भी हैं, उन लोगों का बहुत बहुत स्वागत। और जो प्रतिभागी हैं, जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं, उन सब लोगों का बहुत स्वागत। ये जरूरी है कि समाज को कहीं ना कहीं अलर्ट करने के लिए या अवेयरनेस लाने के लिए हमें इस तरीके के कार्यक्रम करते रहना चाहिए, क्योंकि इंटरनल कंप्लेंट कमेटी के बारे में जो बच्चे हैं उनको कई बार पता भी नहीं होता है कि कॉलेज में इस तरीके की कोई कमेटी है। और जहां तक वर्क प्लेस पर सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट की बात है, ये वाकई हम लोगों के लिए तो एक बहुत बड़ा काला धब्बा है जब हम भारतीय संस्कृति की बात करते हैं, और उस संस्कृति के अंदर महिलाओं को जो स्थान दिया गया है उस सबसे हटकर है। लेकिन जीवन की वास्तविकता यही है, हर मनुष्य अपने दिमाग से, अपने दिल से और सब तरीके से अलग तरीके का है। कब किसके हृदय में किस तरीके की बात आ जाए, किसके दिमाग में किस तरीके की बात आ जाए, तो उन सबको रोकने के लिए कहीं ना कहीं हमको कुछ ना कुछ इम्प्लीमेंट कराने के लिए इस तरीके के कुछ कानूनी चीजें को ध्यान में रखना पड़ता है। और यहाँ पर जो प्रतिभागी हैं, और मैं समझती हूँ क्योंकि हमारा कॉलेज गर्ल्स कॉलेज है, तो इसमें बहुत सारी लड़कियां ही होंगी, और उन सब लोगों को अपने अधिकारों के बारे में, कहाँ उनको यदि उनके साथ कुछ भी गलत हो रहा है तो कहाँ उन्हें कहना है, इन सब के बारे में जानना भी चाहिए और फिर सतर्क भी रहना चाहिए और इतना मजबूत भी होना चाहिए कि आप जो है इस बात की शिकायत कर सकें। अपने लिए स्वयं खड़े होना ही वास्तव में इंटरनल कंप्लेंट कमेटी का काम है। ये सिखाती है इंटरनल कंप्लेंट कमेटी। जब आप अपने ही आंतरिक प्रकोष्ठ के अंदर शिकायत नहीं कर पाओगे तो आप बाहर जाकर किसी बात का विरोध कैसे कर पाओगे। तो इसीलिए, और साथ ही साथ इसमें जो भी जरूरतें हैं और किस तरीके का हैरेसमेंट हो सकता है और उससे बचने के लिए हमें किस तरीके से प्रयत्नशील होना है, ये सब बताने के लिए हमारे दोनों अतिथि जो हैं यहाँ पर वक्ता मौजूद हैं। आपको वो बहुत सारी बातें बताएंगे इस बारे में। और मैं समझती हूँ जो भी प्रतिभागी हैं उन सबको बहुत सचेत होकर, सतर्क होकर इन चीजों का ध्यान रखना है। अपने आप को किसी भी तरीके से जो है हैरेस नहीं होने देना है। अपने लिए यदि हम खुद खड़े होते हैं तभी दूसरा कोई हमारे लिए खड़ा होता है। तो इसलिए कभी भी अपने आप को पीछे नहीं रखना है। मेरी आप सब लोगों को यही सलाह है। ऑर्गेनाइजर्स को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं, बधाई। आपका ये कार्यक्रम सफल हो और जिस उद्देश्य से, जिस ऑब्जेक्टिव के साथ आपने इस कार्यक्रम का आयोजन किया है, संयोजन किया है, तो वो आपका सफल हो। बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Thanks a lot. Friends, as you know, with improved access to education, skilling, and employment opportunities, millions of Indian women are entering the country's workforce. ऐसे में जरूरी हो जाता है कि सभी महिलाओं के वर्किंग प्लेस पर माहौल सुरक्षित हो, उनके साथ किसी भी तरह का कोई डिस्क्रिमिनेशन ना हो। अगर ये डिस्क्रिमिनेशन कहीं पाया जाता है तो उसके लिए क्या प्रावधान है इन सब पर विस्तार से जानने के लिए मैं आमंत्रित कर रही हूँ प्रोफेसर रेणु देसवाल जी को, जो कि वेरी डायनामिक पर्सनालिटी है, और मैम का संक्षिप्त परिचय मैं आपसे पहले साझा करती हूँ। प्रोफेसर रेणु देसवाल जी डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ बॉटनी, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ दिल्ली में सीनियर प्रोफेसर हैं। प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर इंटरनल कंप्लेंट कमेटी, यूनिवर्सिटी दिल्ली में ही है। अगर मैम के पब्लिकेशन की बात करूं तो बहुत ही वास्ट है, इसलिए ब्रीफ में मैम आपसे बात करती हूँ कि वेरियस रिसर्च पेपर्स एंड आर्टिकल्स इन नेशनल एंड इंटरनेशनल जर्नल, इनवाइटेड लेक्चर्स, रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट्स, membership of various academic institutions, notes of prestigious awards, editorial work in different journals, administrative work in different committees. Many students has done MPhil PhD under your supervision. मैम, आपने हर क्षेत्र में अमिट छाप छोड़ी है। ऐसी महान विभूति को मेरा पुनः प्रणाम करता हूँ। मैम प्लीज शेयर योर व्यूज। मैम प्लीज। रेणु मैम प्लीज। मैम आप सुन पा रहे हैं?
हाँ जी, थैंक।
लगता है कुछ नेटवर्क इशू है।
Thank you for your kind words, and my presentation in a minute. And actually our internet connection is a little unstable, so in case I lose in between, I'll rejoin. So just wait for a few minutes, because that. So I'll just share my. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Can you hear me, madam? नहीं, यहाँ से तो ठीक है, क्या हो रहा है?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
ओह, उर्मिल मैडम, आपको सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है क्या? ऐसे तो आपको भी सुनना चाहिए अगर मैडम को सूची को सुन रहा है तो। So can I start my presentation in that case, if you can hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Just give me a minute. I'm just so. So just. Just give me a minute. I'll just. उर्मिल जी, आपको सुनाई दे रहा है? आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है somehow. I don't know. I'm not able to.
मैम आपकी आवाज प्रॉपर आ रही है हमें?
Can you see my slides?
यस मैम।
अच्छा ठीक है, आपको स्लाइड नजर आ रही है? मैंने शेयर कर लिया है।
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you see the slides?
जी मैम।
Are my slides visible?
यस मैम। यस मैम विजिबल।
Acha. Okay, then I'll start. So today's topic is implementation of sexual harassment of women at workplace, Act 2013. And as Madam has introduced, that is mainly.
आई थिंक नेटवर्क इशू है कुछ मैम के साथ। Yes.
Sorry for the bad connection. It's giving a lot of trouble today.
Sometimes it happens.
Asking again and again because I'm losing connection.
नेटवर्क इशू कुछ मैम के साथ। हम सूची मैम से बुलाएंगे ना पहले, तब तक नेटवर्क हो सकता है सोल्व हो जाए।
Should I try again? Urmil ji दिखाई दे रही है. I'm extremely sorry. The connection is very bad today. So this all started with Bhamri Devi Asathin, who was working with government of Rajasthan, and she was working for women cause. And actually, she wanted to. This is May 1992. She tried to stop a Bal Vivah which was happening in her vicinity. And she was gang raped for that. 5 men, they gang raped her. Madam, kuch kar do na. Ma'am, can you hear me? Urmil madam?
Yes ma'am.
How do I check that I'm not muted?
Yes ma'am, आ रही है आवाज आपकी।
अच्छा, तब थोड़ा देर में रिस्पॉन्स करते हैं, मुझे लगता है आ नहीं रही है शायद।
ऊपर रिस्पॉन्स कर रही हूं, आप तक आवाज लेट पहुंच रही है।
अच्छा, आवाज नहीं आती। So she was gang raped and then she started fighting for that. But unfortunately, even today, she has not been delivered justice. And some NGOs which were working for women cause, then they took her cause and they filed a petition in Supreme Court that because she was working as an employee of Rajasthan government and she suffered sexual harassment while she was on workplace, So she should be given justice. Due to that, one of the NGO was Vishakha. So slides.
You have not
So
seen it.
these Vishakha guidelines, because of this case in Supreme Court, a judgment was given in 1997, which is called as Vishakha judgment. And the reason for that was because there was no rules, though no laws for sexual harassment of women at that time. So this judgment at least gave, or people start thinking about sexual harassment, and it was defined like what is sexual harassment at workplace, what are the guidelines to deal with this. And it was the first kind of admission that sexual harassment is important and we should have laws or rules. And then the infamous case of 16 December 2012 happened, which was again a very brutal gang rape case. And after that, a judicial committee headed by J.S. Verma, a retired judge of Supreme Court, was put in place. And due to the recommendations of Verma's committee, on 1st February 13, an ordinance was approved by Cabinet Ministry about laws, that we should have laws for based on feedback or recommendations of a Verma committee. And that led to the genesis of your Act 2013. After that, when the recommendations were given by the Cabinet Ministry, then this act was passed in Parliament in December 2013. And this was called as, or this was labeled as, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. So this was the first kind of law or rules or act which was put in place, and it was for pan India. So, and how do I know if I'm on or not? So, and now this initiative basically the setting up of various laws, and we have actually a number of laws now in Indian Penal Code. I have just few of them. Section 354, it's for criminal assault on women, and intent to outrage her modesty and here the imprisonment of up to 2 years with or without fine or both is there. We have 354A to D, unwelcome sexual overtones, and again here the imprisonment of 4 laws and the 5.
मैम आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है। मैम आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है। हेलो, हाँ जी मैम। हेलो।
हाँ मैम, एक मिनट, वो अनम्यूट हो गया था, पता नहीं अपने आप ही कैसे। आई एम ट्राइंग टू म्यूट हो गया था, अनम्यूट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हूँ। खोल दो ना, stop तो करो। बताना सही।
यस मैम, हमारी आवाज आपको।
कैन यू हियर मी नाउ?
मैम यस, प्रॉपर।
बट स्लाइड्स नहीं मूव कर रहे हैं अब मेरे, अभी अभी आई थिंक, या नाउ दे आर फाइन। So just be here. So these are just some examples of IPC in Indian Penal Code, which are there now for against sexual harassment. And it's not complete, but we have a number of things now available for fighting sexual harassment. And basically, when we talk of universities, we have regulations, UGC regulations based on Act 2013. We are basically following Act 2013, but we have adapted it for education, higher education institutions. And these regulations, they came into place in 2015. And it's a federal law which prohibits sexual harassment of women employees and students in higher. बैठ जाओ यार, देख लो ना, अगर आता तो कर लेना. The regulation is a significant step forward in making higher education more accessible to women, as well as establishing a positive mechanisms like ICCs, and where we have elected student representatives to address the issue of sexual harassment and any gender-based violence. And this regulations now, it kind of places a legal obligation on all higher education institutions to create a campus free of discrimination, harassment, retaliation, or sexual assaults at all level. It also includes a long list of supporting measures to curb any harassment based on region, class, caste, sexual orientation, minority identification, and even for differentially abled population. Then even for concern of safety of a woman is also taken care when you're talking of these rules and regulation. That is a kind of additional step which has been suggested by UGC, that safety of women with regard to their staying places, their hostels, we should have more women hostel, then campus safety policies like lighting and all, then having proper policing on campus, that should also be in place. Besides this, as I mentioned, constructing more and more women hostel, gender sensitive healthcare facilities, counselors, adequate lighting on campuses, and in addition to that, sensitization programs for all stakeholders, whether it's faculty, administrative staff, security personnel, or students, for everyone. So this is a very broader coverage of our act. In addition, we have adopted some other mechanisms or certain other things are in place so that you are basically trying to make your campus free of any sexual harassment or any kind of harassment for that matter. So there are few terminologies, a few terms which we should understand, like what is sexual harassment, because many a times it's very difficult to differentiate what constitutes sexual harassment. Then what is a workplace? Then finally, who is the aggrieved woman who can put a complaint of sexual harassment? So sexual harassment is an unwanted conduct of a sexual nature or unwelcome or inappropriate promise of rewards in exchange of sexual favors, like some kind of favoritism, that I'll do this if you do this. In most modern legal context, sexual harassment is illegal. This is very clear with now the laws in place and with the many sections of IPC to help. This is illegal and there is heavy punishment for if you are indulging in sexual harassment. As per the regulations or the act, sexual harassment is basically any physical contact or advances which are like without consent, unwelcome. Then a demand or request for sexual favors, or sexually colored remarks, or showing pornography, or any offensive or derogatory pictures or cartoons. Then it also includes implied or explicit promise of preferential treatment to a lady, whether she's an employee or in a student in her studies or a research scholar in her work. So whenever there is a preferential treatment to at any level, that also constitutes sexual harassment. Similarly, implied or explicit threat of detrimental treatment, again at all levels. Then threat to her present employment or future employment, creating a offensive or intimidating environment or hostile work environment for a worker or a student, anybody in the workplace. Then any kind of humiliating treatments which can affect her mental and physical health. All this, and this is just a cartoon to show whatever I've mentioned. This first one says sexual favors for doing some work. Second one says vulgar songs or vulgar comments. Then third cartoon shows that being a woman, it is being said, you are just a woman, we need a man for this assignment, like discriminating on basis of sex or gender. Then lower one, gender-based insults, like making babies all women are good for. You are not good for anything else. Similarly, touching inappropriately. The person is saying that you are like my beti, but touching the person inappropriately. He is saying something, but doing something. Again, the last one, threatening adverse consequences on raising objections or resisting advances. If somebody is trying to go or crossing those boundaries and somebody objects, then you are being threatened for, say, I'll stop your promotion, or I'll not do this work, or I would not do this. So all these are different forms or different shades of sexual harassment which are existing in a workplace. And workplace for a higher education institution, it could be any department, organization, institution, office, branch of office, which is established, controlled wholly or substantially financed by this institution, and covers both organized as well as unorganized sector. So even any sports institute, stadium, sports complex, games venue, or residential students or the sport personnel, they are undergoing training. Similarly, any place visited by employee or student due to his course or due to requirement of his or her duties, that also, even the transportation which is provided by the institution, that also comes under the workplace. So anything which happens at any of these would comprise the workplace. Then who is an aggrieved woman, or who can be an aggrieved woman, or who is can put a complaint? All women working or visiting any place, whether they are regular employee, temporary employee, ad hoc, or daily wagers, engaged directly or indirectly, say through contractors, working on remunerations, voluntary or otherwise. Term of employment may be expressed or implied, but whosoever is working for the institution, he or she could be a co-worker or a contract worker, then a trainee or visitor. So, and even women covering who are working in the dwelling places, they are also covered by this law, not definitely by the institutional rules and regulations, but yeah, to some extent. You have other committees which are called local complaints committee, which can take care of those things. Now, what are the responsibility of our institutions, higher education institution? Every employer shall provide a safe working environment. That is the first and foremost requirement at the workplace. That means the person who comes for working should feel safe. Then we should display the penal consequences, or even about sexual harassment, what constitutes sexual harassment, the orders or the IPC, and about ICC also. And what provisions are there? Like if a person complains, then what can she derive out of that complaint? That should be displayed and discussed and kind of shared with all stakeholders again, so that they are aware. Awareness is important. And the next point also is about awareness. Organize workshops and awareness programs at regular intervals for all faculty, non-teaching employees, students. Provide necessary facilities like your internal complaints committee. In institutions, it's internal complaints committee. Basically, local committee works outside institutions. And that committee should deal with if they find any complaint, and they should conduct a proper inquiry. And the institution also has a responsibility of helping these committees for securing attendance of respondents and witnesses and everybody else who is required for conducting an inquiry. So, and the employer in addition should create and communicate the detailed policy about sexual harassment, what is in place, ensure awareness orientation, constitutes, this I've already mentioned, complaints committee. And they should also look into this, that the complaint committee is skilled properly and it has all members and it's complete and it's working properly. And annual report are to be submitted to UGC. That is also the employer's duty, that they should make it sure that annual reports are being prepared by these committees and then they are being submitted to UGC. ICC, basically all the members of ICC, generally they hold a term for 3 years. In DU, we have one ICC, which is for Delhi University, which caters to all the department, institutes and halls and hostels. While our colleges have different ICC, each college has its own ICC. The main functions of ICC, whether it is college ICC or university ICC, they have to educate and sensitize everyone about the issues of sexual harassment, and they have to take care of the complaints if they get any and conduct inquiry. And it is a quasi-judicial body because it has some powers. It can summon and enforce attendance when inquiries are going on. And it can also collect evidences regarding inquiry and other documents which help in conducting the inquiry. So generally, your ICC has this constitution. It has a chairperson. Normally, most of the time or always, a chairperson should be a woman who is aware of women rights and who is aware of women roles and regulations and duties and aware about the rules and laws basically. Then teaching members are there, non-teaching members are there, student members are there, and NGO member is there. So this covers all stakeholders. You have teaching, non-teaching and student. An important point is student members are elected. Elections are held every year and then they continue their term for 1 year. But other committees, and generally 2/3 of member, they keep rotating. New member keeps coming and the older one are replaced by the new one. This is our ICC currently. We have, I am the chairperson, then we have Professor Vageshwari Deswal. Actually, she has now been replaced with another member. She was the legal advisor. Now we have another member in her place. Then we have Professor Vibha Chaturvedi, who is an external member. Professor K.N. Saraswati and Professor Gajendra Singh also has been recently replaced with another member. These are 2 teaching members. Then 2 non-teaching members, Mr. Gagandeep and Ms. Meena Sharma. They are non-teaching members. And now we have 3 new student members. This was the old student member who has now left. Now we have got elected 3 student members and they are the members of the committee. This slide is 2-3 months old. And this is what ICC DU is doing. Generally, we prepare posters. Again, the main cause is to spread awareness and to keep people in loop. Again, all stakeholders, so that they are aware what is sexual harassment. So we made these small posters where we describe this, what is sexual harassment and how to recognize that you are being sexually harassed. And then what I've already discussed, what all comprises sexual harassment. So, and then how do you prepare a complaint and where to file a complaint? So there we have given the address of the office also, ICC office also, and the coordinator who handles all the paperwork. She basically receives all the complaints and everything, and then the committee meets depending on if a complaint has come or not. Besides this, we are also trying to help by grievance redressal of sexual harassment. We talk to people, we counsel them, and we try to provide them support. Okay, right now, and sometimes many queries, they keep coming to us from colleges, many complaints from colleges also routed to university ICC. So we revert them back, we tell them where you have to send these complaints. Many times people are not aware that they have, in fact, particularly students, they are not aware that they have ICC in their colleges. So I think at time of orientation or new admissions, this is important that students should be aware that each college has their own ICC and they function under your governing body and principal. The college, the department ICC functions under our executive council or registrar. So these are two different mechanisms which are in place in university. So our students should be aware of this. So this is how we go about complaint. So any aggrieved woman, she can give a complaint in writing. Okay, it is just to come in writing, but the only rule here is, or only law or only precaution to be followed is, the complaint has to be given within a period of 3 months. And if she has faced a series of incidences or these experiences, then whenever the last thing happened, the duration or the cutoff time is 3 months. Within 3 months, you have to submit your complaint. So if it goes beyond 3 months, then it becomes time barred. So then ICC would be not in a position to entertain that complaint. So this is a very important point. One, the complainant herself has to give a complaint, then in writing, and the time is important. Okay, time limit sometimes can be extended by ICC by, say, about 3 months, like we extended in the time of duration of lockdown, because that was a genuine reason. So in one particular complaint, in fact 3 complaints, we extended the time and we gave more time to the complainant. So ICC, if in cases where woman is not able to make a complaint in writing, then ICC provide assistance on such cases. And generally, when she is not able to make a complaint because of whatever her health condition or mental condition, then generally on her suggestion or her consent, her relative or friend or some other guardian, they can put a complaint on her behalf if she cannot put a complaint in writing by herself. And we ask for 6 copies of complaint from the complainant, with all relevant details, whatever evidences or supporting material she wants to supply, we ask for that, even the name of witnesses. So all this information should be there in the complaint: name of contravener or respondent, the complainant name, date, time, location of incident, and with very clarity she has to mention what happened and the details of the incident with time and date. Then working relationship between parties, at what stage they are they students or they are non-teaching staff or they are faculty of the university. Then name and addresses of witnesses if she has any. So all these details should be there in the complaint. Then normally when we receive a complaint, within 7 working days, we have to register the complaint. And for registering the complaint, first thing which we have to do is we have to make sure that this is actually a sexual harassment complaint, because ICC's working domain is sexual harassment. We cannot go beyond that. Then we refer the complaints. If they are not sexual harassment complaints, then we refer them to appropriate section of the university. So first and foremost decision is that the committee sits and decides whether it's a sexual harassment complaint, it qualifies as a sexual harassment complaint or not. And then we register it. If it qualifies, then we register it and we start the proceeding or inquiry process. And normally when you are conducting an inquiry, at least 3 members, that is a quorum for your meetings, should be there. And inquiry has several steps. So generally, first I've already mentioned that the complaint has to qualify as a sexual harassment complaint at workplace. And then once we are sure, and then we ask for 6 copies from the complainant. And out of those copies, 1 is sent to the respondent to respond for the complaint. And generally this response is asked within 10 days of sending the complaint to the respondent. Then we fix up hearings of both the parties as well as of witnesses. We hear them because hearing is a kind of important step in natural justice, because you have to give chance to both the parties, and it has to be like same. You cannot be biased, and you cannot have some notions in your mind already that whether which way this case is going, because you have to decide on basis of whatever evidences you have. You cannot presume or you cannot assume that this is looking like this. So with evidences, you support the case and then you make a decision. So once you've done this hearing of all the parties and all witnesses and all, then you compile the report, you make a like sequence of events, and you prepare your, first you prepare findings. What are your findings depending on allegation, where you have been able to substantiate those allegations, whatever the complainant is saying, on basis of proofs, whether these are evidently some witness has vouched or you have some written documents to support. Then depending on that, you give your recommendations. Okay. And normally before you take the full-fledged complaint, if the complainant is asking for conciliation, then that opportunity is also given to the complainant. But again, this would be her choice, and this would be without any monetary settlement. This should be on her, this should come from her own. If she feels that she needs or she wants to reconcile, then that opportunity is also given to her before initiating the process of inquiry. And when you're conducting inquiry, as I mentioned, you hear or interview the complainant, the respondent, and witnesses. You list or you make a list of events, how they have happened. You do fact finding, that is called finding, like you draw findings of the against the allegation. And here, confidentiality and impartiality, these are two important things which you always have to keep in mind when you are inquiring on these complaints. And third important point, next important point, is you have to follow the principle of natural justice. That is important again for both the parties. And you have a choice to give ex parte decision or terminate the proceedings if the respondent or the complainant, they fail to pursue the complaint and they don't appear for 3 consecutive hearings. Then you just give them a final notice of 15 days and you can take an ex parte decision, or you can also terminate if the complainant doesn't turn up. Then legal practitioners generally are not allowed in these proceedings. And confidentially, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important that you don't disclose anything. Then I mentioned about rules of natural justice, and there the first opportunity is hearing all the parties, the complainant, the respondent, all the concerned witnesses of both the parties. Then your judgment, it has to be impartial, as I mentioned, and it has to be fair and based on evidences, no leaning on any side. Then your orders, they have to be, again, because if they are based on evidences, then they would be seasoned and reasoned orders. So your orders have to be properly placed on, based on evidences. When you're conducting these inquiries, you also have kind of, you can provide them interim measures so that the sexual harassment which she was undergoing, the complainant, it doesn't continue further. So you can, what all you can do, you can stop the respondent from reporting on work performance if he's a senior or she's a subordinate of some working person. Then also writing her confidential report or appraisal. Then if she's a student, supervising her academic activities. Then we can transfer the complainant on the respondent. We can send them on leave. Respondent or complainant, they can be sent on leave, so that distance you maintain, so that that contact is not there and sexual harassment doesn't continue further until unless you conclude your inquiry. Normally, when you talk of recommendations for faculty, you have, this is considered as a misconduct. So you have several mechanisms or tools which can be offered as recommendations. You can recommend disciplinary actions like written apology, warning. You can reprimand. You can withhold promotions or increments or any pay increase. You can advise counseling sessions, community service. And if the act is very grave, then even termination from services can be recommended. And any kind of financial damages in form of fines if the complainant has undergone some medical treatment because of sexual harassment, then her bills can be paid by the accused person or the respondent. Then for students, generally warning, apology, again counseling, withholding privileges like visit to libraries, taking away their iCard and bus passes and all, then withholding results of the students, not providing them character certificate, even their admission can be cancelled if the cases are serious. So a lot of provisions are there which can be served as recommendations after finding your results of the inquiry. And this is important that these complaints, if they are farce or false, then action can be taken against the aggrieved woman also. If it is found at any stage the complaint is not true, it's not correct, and if the complainant has produced any forged or misleading document, then she can also be kind of charged. But in that case, generally you have to conduct a separate inquiry as per procedures, and you have to prove that this is a malicious or false complaint. Okay. Then if during our hearings and all, if some witness, they give wrong statement or evidence, then employer can be recommended to take actions against such witness. Again, it can be a faculty or a student. And normally this is the timeline. Within 3 months of the last incident, you have to submit your complaint. This I've already mentioned. Then within 7 days of receiving the copy of the complaint, you have to send it to respondent for answer, which generally takes 10 days to come. That's the limit. Then within 90 days of receiving the complaint, you have to complete the inquiry process. And once you have completed the inquiry, within 10 days of completion, you have to submit your report. In our case, we submitted to registrar, and then you have to, then the registrar, it's then the university's job or registrar's job that they go further with it, and they imply or they implement the recommendations of ICC. And generally when you talk of university, then executive council is the executing authority which takes care of these recommendations and decide according to the recommendation. As I mentioned, confidentiality is a very important clause when you're conducting these inquiries. You don't have to discuss, you don't have to disclose neither about the cases nor about any parties, and especially your complainant or the content of the complaint. That is important because if you want to derive a fair conclusion out of your inquiry, then that confidentiality is essential. Okay, even the action taken by the employer, all this has to be kept confidential until it reaches to the party. And there are provisions of fining. If you are defying these confidentiality clause, then you can be filed by the employer. And this is an important point, that any party, whether it's the respondent or the complainant, they have a right to appeal. And again, in case of our university, it's basically registrar to whom the appeal is given, but this is given within 1 month of receiving the report of the case of the inquiry, ICC inquiry. And further, if the party is not, any party is not satisfied at university level, they are free to go to regular courts for justice. Those are the provisions which are available to the parties. Then our HEI also have to monitor what is happening regarding sexual harassment. For that, it is very important that annual report of ICC is submit, and there they ask for details of number of cases received, disposed of, cases which are pending for more than 90 days, and then how many workshops or awareness sessions were carried out by ICC, and also the nature of action taken by the employer. So all these, they make steps of monitoring, and they make sure that the process is being adhered to, and we are doing necessary duties to curb sexual harassment on campus. And there are penal consequences also if any employer is not following these rules. Then say they don't form ICC, or they don't act on recommendation of ICC, or they don't submit their annual report, or they are not following the provisions of the act, then there's a penalty of 50,000 on the employer. And if there's a repeat of such breach, then even the cancellation of registration of the higher institution is possible. I think this is the last slide. Thank you for your kind attention, and Jai Hind. And with this, I am stopping my presentation.
थैंक यू सो मच मैम। आपने जो प्रेजेंटेशन दिया है इससे पूरा आपने डिटेल, जो स्टार्टिंग में हमें प्रॉब्लम लग रही थी कि मैम को सुन नहीं पाएंगे, बट लास्ट में आपने सारा हमें इतना डिटेल में इसके बारे में बताया कि कैसे जो भव्य देवी केस से इसको स्टार्ट किया, और विशाखा गाइडलाइन क्या रही, 2013 में एक्ट कैसे पास हुआ, सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट में हम किस चीजों को इंक्लूड कर सकते हैं, एग्रीगेट वीमेन जो है वो क्या है, हायर इंस्टीट्यूशन की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज क्या है, और कितने टाइम में हमें कंप्लेन करना चाहिए, किसको करना चाहिए, हम कॉलेज लेवल में कैसे कर सकते हैं, यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पर कैसे अपील कर सकते हैं, कौन कौन इस कमेटीज में हो सकते हैं, पूरा आपने डिटेल में जो है हमें इसके बारे में नॉलेज दी है। वेरी इंफॉर्मेटिव लेक्चर मैम, थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक्स अ लॉट मैम। फ्यूचर में
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure, Urmil ji. And if there are any questions or queries from the student, I can take them. Or if anybody want to ask anything, then I'm here. If or you want to continue with the next speaker first, and then you want to have a discussion.
Yes, ma'am. पहले हम नेक्स्ट स्पीकर को ले लेते हैं।
अच्छा, ठीक है, no issues. Okay, sure.
थैंक यू सो मच मैम, थैंक यू। और अब आमंत्रित करती हूँ एमिनेंट पर्सनालिटी डॉक्टर सुची कपूरिया जी, जेंडर स्टडी यूनिट, इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ डेवलपमेंट एंड कम्युनिकेशन, चंडीगढ़ में मैम हैं। और मैम आपका वर्क जो है बहुत वास्ट है, मेरे पास डिटेल की ज्यादा नहीं है, बट आप बहुत ही डायनामिक पर्सनालिटी हैं। तो मैम प्लीज शेयर योर व्यूज विद अस, मैम प्लीज।
Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Thank you. So, speaker just before me has made everything very clear on the act. So now I think, actually, I had divided my presentation into two parts. I thought of speaking something on the broader context of gender-based violence, and then bringing on some focus on the sexual harassment at workplace. But since sexual harassment at workplace act has been taken up very well in detail by the speaker prior to me, so I would just raise a couple of questions or couple of issues regarding the harassment or the violence that we see among women, and then we will just open the floor for discussion or questions. So give me a minute. I had prepared a presentation, but I think now only a section of it would be relevant. Much has been already been said. So okay. So somehow I cannot share my screen, but I will just briefly raise my issues, and then we can go on further from there. So my first issue is that, when we look at sexual harassment or any other, for that matter, act of violence against women, what do we understand and how we should place that act of violence? So very recently, this is the latest data that is available on women, on crimes against women, and this is from NCRB. It states that crimes in India against women have increased by 15.3% in 2021, while it was something like 56.5% in 2020. This has now increased to about 65% in 2021. Now, what are the majority of cases that have been registered? Um, we find that cruelty by husbands or relatives, 31%, assault on women with intent to outrage her modesty, 21%, kidnapping, abduction, 17%, rape, 7%. And during the outbreak of COVID-19, since 2020 was the year where we had this outbreak of COVID-19 and people were just shut in their own respective homes, we found that violence against women, especially domestic violence, increased. Many women also committed suicide, and the number of suicide cases increased. And experts believe that this is probably because of the oppressed patriarchal system that exists in our society, where women and men had to live in the same house. They were shut in the same house for months altogether. So we also found that women were committing suicide, and these were marriage-related issues, dowry-related issues, impotence, infertility-related issues, which led to women committing suicide. So this leads us to the next issue of why is it that how should we look at such instances of crimes? So is it just crime against women, or should we actually look at the broader gender-based violence or gender-based crimes? See, crime against women is a subset of gender-based violence. We need to understand this difference because sex as such is a biological phenomenon, a male sex and a female sex. But then gender is a social construct. And being a social construct, then gender gives this terminology of man and woman, right, to the two sexes that we popularly generally talk of. And any violence which is based on this ideology of differentials in the gender hierarchy, right? So hierarchy in terms of one gender being superior to the other gender. So there is this relationship of subordination, and there's this superior gender, superior sex, and an inferior sex. So wherever violence is based on this conception of gender differentials, we call it as gender-based violence. So since most of the crimes are committed against female, we call it crime against women. But otherwise, men equally can be a victim of gender-based violence. For instance, honor killings. In honor killings, where we know that, let's say, a female married outside her caste, and then the punishment is meted out to the female and also to the boy. So here, man also becomes a victim. So gender-based violence, we need to understand the broader term of gender-based violence, because then any instance of violence or crime or abuse has to be dealt with in a manner which makes dealing with it more fruitful. In the sense, I'll talk of it. Crime against women does not really mean that it is crime committed by a man towards a woman. Victim of crime could be a woman, and the perpetrator also could be a woman, as in the case of, let's say, dowry harassment, where mother-in-law is torturing daughter-in-law. So a victim and a perpetrator, both are women. But what is the origin of this crime? The origin of the crime is gender ideology, gender system. And the gender system which places one gender as inferior to the other gender, right? So this patriarchal the origin of our society, where men and women do not share the same kind of status. They do not share same kind of social or economic status. That system leads to violence against one gender, which in this case is women, because women is a weaker gender, right? So now you take if our understanding is based on this differential between gender and gender-based violence, and so we can have policies or we can have systems in place which can check this gender-based violence, right? So it is very important to understand that the acts of violence um, could take different forms. For instance, acts of violence against a particular sex, in this case women, because ours is a patriarchal society and most of the crimes are meted against women. So this may take the form of, let's say, sex determination before birth. So sex determination and sex termination. And you have an act dealing with, which is like PCP and DT Act, which talks about sex determination becoming illegal, right? But then this again can take another form. So let's say if you try to check feticide through PCP and DT Act, this may take another form of infanticide. So let's say one could not determine sex before birth. So as soon as the girl child is born, in that case, she faces cultural neglect. So she's neglected by the parents, or let's say she's not taken care of, she's not given enough food and nutrition, which ultimately leads to her death. So one form may decline, feticide may decline, and we can be very happy that, you know, PCP and DT Act has led to decline in cases of feticide. But on the other hand, cases of infanticide may increase, right? So that is the kind of thing that we have to understand, and that is why I bring everyone back to the same point, that we need to recognize that there is a difference between how we treat such instances of sexual harassment, or let's say of violence against women, if we place it in the greater, the bigger, the macro gender ideology, and then and then addressing those problems in the society, right? So now I will come to another point of, let's say, this particular act of sexual harassment at workplace, right? So we say that, you know, women under the patriarchal system do not have equal opportunities to men in employment or education, right? So we are encouraging our women to go out, to venture out, to get educated, and then also to enter marketplace. But we know under our gender system, women have a specific role to play. Let's say that of a housewife, or of a wife who's taking care of the household. And here we are trying to educate her. We have the thinking that through education and through work, she will empower herself and she will be able to take care of herself, and that will provide her an equal status in the society. So wherever there is a instance of somebody breaking these rules, or going against the acceptable social norms attached to a particular gender, we see that we face harassment or cases of violence. For instance, just in one of the pictures that the speaker before me had shown, that, you know, women are good for making babies. This is the kind of comment that you hear at a workplace, let's say. So this project you are not good for this project, you are only good for making babies. So that is the general understanding, acceptable social norm of women, their rightful place in the household and not in the work environment, right? So these kind of comments, so there has been no physical abuse, there has been no sexual abuse also, but then this also amounts to sexual harassment, because this is a kind of crime, or let's say violence, which has been a kind of a psychological or emotional violence, not physical, not sexual in that sense, but this is a kind of violence which puts you in a derogatory place. This is not your rightful place. So you belong to the household. Your role is in the household and not in the work environment. So these kind of things would probably discourage women to enter work market, right? So now this law that has been put in place, this act that has been put in place, ensures that women have a dignified, so they enjoy their basic human rights, they also enjoy their basic freedoms of choosing their profession, right? So to ensure that they have their rightful place, to ensure that they can also economically empower themselves, this law has been put in place. Interestingly, the same data, the same source of data, NCRB states that, crime, sexual harassment at workplace constitutes only 0.1% of the crimes that have been reported. And this has been so in the last 3-4 years. You know, for these many years, it is only 0.1%. So then it comes to our mind that why is it that only a few cases, or let's say only a small number of cases, and in terms of numbers, numbers are like 485 cases or 504 cases all India, right, in a particular year. So then we think that, why is it that either there is no reporting of the cases, or then there is an absence of complete sexual harassment at workplace, that our workplaces are very safe and equal and non-discriminatory. So, but to draw such kind of an inference is also wrong. Why? Because we also understand that for whatever the law has been, this act definitely it enables and it kind of encourages women to lodge a complaint. But still, many women are not able to lodge complaints. Many women are not able to register their complaints also. So what is it that discourages them from lodging these complaints? Why is it there is that non-reporting of violence against women? So this is, there are many reasons, and I'm not talking only in the context of sexual harassment, but then also generally, let's say, um, any kind of violence that takes place against women. So let's say there are very large number of factors which contribute to non-reporting of cases. One is the invisibility of violence, because violence doesn't only have to be a physical torture or a sexual act, sexual, or let's say rape or molestation. Violence can also be psychological, in the sense that, demanding dowry. So you're not saying anything in the sense that you're not beating your wife, you're not beating up or assaulting her, but then a constant demand for dowry, a constant harassment for dowry. So this kind of, there is nothing that can prove that, that she's being harassed, or she's being, or wife beating, where wife beating is acceptable to many. For instance, you go to rural areas and you speak to women, then they will say that, her husband beats her and he is justified. She does the household work. So if she doesn't take care of the children, or she doesn't do this and that, so definitely husband will beat. So in some sense, the wife beating has been justified by other women, not just husband, but by other women also. So a large number of cases, instances of violence are hidden, in the sense they are not visible. So dowry harassment is hidden, but dowry death becomes visible. So that kind of issues also leads to non-reporting of violence. Lack of trust in the formal system, kuch nahi hona, even if I complain, he's a powerful man, or boss is so powerful that, nothing will happen against him. He will be saved by the system, or by the whatever clout that he has, economic or political clout that he has, he will be saved. So I don't trust the formal system. Then there may also be victimization, stigmatization of the victim, sorry, where we say victim blaming. She was wearing such clothes, she invited it on herself, right? So rather than being sympathetic to a woman, a grieved woman, we say, she was like that. Let's say in workplace also, she was like that. She was habitual of speaking with men, and, she used to go out with men. So this was, she called it upon herself. So that kind of things also lead to further stigmatization of the victim, because of which women are not able to open up about such acts of harassment or assault, or let's say violence. And also in large number of cases where women try, like, family honor is associated with women. So women do not find it, or the families do not encourage their daughters or their women to go out and lodge a complaint, because that is seen to bring shame to the family, the entire family. So when we talk about, let's say, for this particular act that has been put in place, sexual harassment at workplace. So we also find that there is no data available to say that how many complaints have been lodged, what happened to those complaints, how many cases have been solved, what went in favor of, either the decision went in favor of women or the employer, etc. So we do not have studies from the government, official documents, official studies saying that, these many cases have been reported. But at the same time, there's another problem, which is a very big problem as to why such cases are not reported, or why we do not have information on these cases, or why complaints are not lodged. That is because a large number, 95% somewhere, it states that 95% of women work in the informal sector. Now, what is informal sector? Let's say Bhavari Devi herself was an employee in the informal sector, right? So let's say agricultural labor, a woman agricultural labor. So she is an informal sector employee. So and mostly because they are poor, or let's say a domestic maid, she's an informal sector employee. So just because they do not have either the wherewithal, the understanding, the awareness of where to lodge their complaint, because you have this, if they are not women are not employee of the formal sector, for informal sector with less than 10 members as employees, they have this local complaint committee, एक तरह से सरकार ने बनाई हुई committee for women in informal sector, where they can go and lodge complaints. But mostly women do not have this information of how and where to lodge their complaint. Secondly, it is also because they're precarious condition. They know they are in need of money, and they cannot or they are not that powerful. Let's say a local landlord is more powerful, right? So they are not in a position to lodge their complaint. So these are the factors that may lead to non-reporting of cases. So if that is the case, I think hello? Hello?
इसमें आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
Okay, I thought I have somewhere lost you. So if that is the case, then, what kind of solutions should we seek? What is the understanding that we should have? And what kind of laws and acts, and what is it that needs to be done here? So I would say that, probably awareness generation is important. Awareness generation about the act is important, but at the same time, it is also important to sensitize people about the bigger issues of gender-based violence, raising awareness as to how crimes against women should be viewed, a basic understanding of how we can stop these crimes, how we can empower women, how we can challenge the existing the hierarchy, the gender hierarchy. And we should also include, to quite an extent, we should also include men in the entire discussion on gender and gender-based violence, and how to sensitize men also towards issues and challenges that women face. So I think now I would hand over to the organizers, and if we have any questions or discussion, we can take it up.
थैंक यू सो मच मैम, थैंक्स अ लॉट मैम। आपने बहुत ही सुंदर तरीके से पैट्रियार्की सिस्टम के बारे में बखूबी हमें बताया कि किस तरीके से इंडिया के अंदर क्या हर जगह जो है पैट्रियार्की सिस्टम बहुत हावी है इसमें। तो पैट्रियार्की सिस्टम में कि जेंडर और सेक्स के बीच में डिफरेंस क्या है कि आपका जो सेक्स है वो बायोलॉजिकल है और आपका जेंडर जो आपका है कि सोशल कंस्ट्रक्ट है, वो किस तरीके से मतलब विमेंस में जो उसका जो लेवल है हमेशा सेकंड लेवल पर जो वो रखा जाता है कि इसमें जो, और कोविड टाइम के अंदर जो वो केसेस और भी बढ़े हैं। अगर हम ये देखें कि वेबसाइट पे देखिए 2021 के अंदर किसका डेटा जो वो इंक्रीज हो रहा है, और इसमें यही से रिलेटेड जो आपने वैक्सीनेशन की बात की है, आपने टर्मिनेशन की बात की है, इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी की बात की है, हर जगह वीमेन जो है कहीं ना कहीं सबसे बड़ी अक्सर जो है वो इनको करने में नहीं आती, तो इसके रिगार्डिंग मुझे ये लगता है कि ये कानूनों का अंतर नहीं है, सामाजिक क्षेत्र का है, और फिर सारी चीजें को कहते कि छोड़ देगा, जब तक हम अपने पर्सनल के बीच प्लेटफॉर्म पर लेकर के नहीं आएंगे तब तक जो है वो हम इसको सोल्यूशन नहीं निकाल सकते, इसलिए बढ़ चढ़ कर जो है वो आगे अपने कानूनों का जो है वो यूज भी करना चाहिए, लेकिन लोग तो कहते हैं कि कानून के लिए वो क्यों नहीं लगते, उनके ऊपर इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं करते, ये तो मेंटली हरासमेंट उनके साथ होता है, यूट्यूब से वो किया जाता है। अभी भी हम एक मैक्रो सिटी में उसकी बात नहीं करते, अगर हम ग्राउंड लेवल पे हर लेवल पे काम करने वाले हैं, वो किसी भी एक लेवल पे काम कर रहे हैं या दूसरे काम कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि मेरा पर्सनल चीज है कि इसमें जो सर्वे मैंने किया है पोस्ट पे जो लोग काम कर रहे हैं उनको मैंने वर्डिंग किसी भी वो काम फिर भी हो जाता है, लेकिन उनको टॉर्चर जो है वो फिर भी किया जाता है उनके साथ, बहुत ही कम ऐसे चीजें हैं जो लॉस को जो है वो उनका बेनिफिट उठा पाते हैं, इसमें बढ़ चढ़कर हमें जो इसका फायदा उठाना चाहिए, बहुत ही सीमित तरीके से हम ओनर फीलिंग जो है वो केसेस वो कैसे बढ़ रहे हैं, और उसमें थ्योरी जो है उसका जो है इनडायरेक्टली जो है वो डायरेक्ट सिस्टम अभी और इंक्रीज हो गया है, बहुत सारे ऐसे केसेस हमारे सामने देखने को मिलते हैं, तो हमें सामाजिक चेतना जो जब तक हमें हमारा माइंडसेट जो है उसके लिए एम्पावर नहीं करेंगे हम लोगों को, तब तक जो है इस समस्या का समाधान जो है वो नहीं निकलेगा, हम लोग सब लोग मिलकर इसमें सामाजिक चेतना का होना बहुत जरूरी है। एंड थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक्स अ लॉट मैम। बच्चों का अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है तो प्लीज बताइएगा। गुंजन, अगर कोई बच्चा क्वेश्चन पूछता है तो प्लीज बताएं। गुंजन, आर यू लिसनिंग? मैम मैं एक पर्सनल वैसे क्वेश्चन पूछ रही थी मैम, वैसे दोनों ही मैम मेरे सामने हैं कि हमारे सामने बहुत सारे कानून बन रहे हैं, इतनी सारी वर्कशॉप करते हैं, लेक्चर्स करते हैं, हर इंस्टीट्यूशन में ये सारी गाइडलाइंस भी हैं, इतने सारे कानून जो जजमेंट करते हैं, लेकिन फिर भी ग्राउंड लेवल पर ये केस क्यों बढ़ रहे हैं? जैसे आपने अभी अपने कोर्ट में जो है वो इंक्रीज हो रहा है, तो ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? क्यों इस चीज को डिक्रीज नहीं कर रहा? इस तरह से छोटा
Suchi ji, probably you can speak on her, you can answer that question.
हाँ श्योर। 1 मिनट मैं सिर्फ रिक्वेस्ट करना चाहती हूँ कि कहीं से पीछे से बैकग्राउंड में बहुत शोर है,
हाँ।
तो डिस्टरबेंस आ रहा है, प्लीज अपना माइक म्यूट कर दीजिए जब तक कि आप अगर बोल ना रहे हो। थैंक यू। या सो आई थिंक मैम जो आप पूछ रहे हैं, व्हाई इज इट दैट देयर इज एन इंक्रीज इन केसेस ऑफ क्राइम्स, राइट, दैट आर बीइंग रिपोर्टेड. So, well, there are two ways of looking at it. If you speak to police or let's say to the government, they would probably say that, women are now coming forward and opening up about their cases of harassment and crimes. So they probably now have more faith on us. So इसीलिए probably they are coming forward and they are reporting crimes तो हमेशा से ही रहे हैं और इसकी रिपोर्टिंग ज्यादा हो रही है. बट कहीं ना कहीं पर ये भी हो सकता है कि फॉर इंस्टेंस जैसे कि कोविड का टाइम था, दैट वाज अ टाइम व्हेन कि हम लोग एक ही घर में एक ही जो हमारा जो पेट्रियार्कल सिस्टम था या जो पेट्रियार्की थी वो बहुत विजिबल हो गया था, तो केसेस ऑफ डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गए थे. सो आई थिंक ये केसेस जो क्राइम्स हैं, क्राइम अगेंस्ट विमेन जो है वो इंक्रीज हो रहा है. दैट्स ऑल्सो अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि हम अभी उतने इवॉल्व बिकॉज और चैनल्स ऑफ क्राइम, फॉर इंस्टेंस अभी एक जो चीज मैंने नहीं अभी इसके बारे में बात की, ऑनलाइन क्राइम्स अगेंस्ट विमेन है ना, अभी एक और साइट बन गई है कि जैसे पहले कॉन्फ्लिक्ट सिचुएशन में विमेन, फॉर इंस्टेंस दिस इज जहाँ पे दो वॉरिंग टीम्स हैं या दो ट्राइब्स हैं जो आपस में लड़ रहे हैं, दो कास्ट ग्रुप्स हैं जो आपस में लड़ रहे हैं, बट होता क्या है, विक्टिमाइज औरत की जाती है, सो बाय रेपिंग समबडी द अदर कास्ट वुमन, राइट. सो दिस इज हाउ यू लेवल योर स्कोर्स. So women जो हैं वो increasingly are facing the consequences of this. Also, this may also be because increasingly women का जो role है, हम कहीं ना कहीं कह रहे हैं कि हम educate कर रहे हैं, उनको empower कर रहे हैं. So they are अभी they have come to the stage of let's say role diversification or role extension. They're not just sitting inside their household, बल्कि बाहर भी निकल रही हैं और बाहर भी काम कर रही हैं, बाहर जा रही हैं for education, for employment, and they face various kind of challenges there, right? पहले crime अगर हम कहें हमें कम लगता था, अगर था कम तो also because there were very large number of crimes which were invisible. For instance, जो कि घर के अंदर हो रहा है, because women were restricted to households. उनका रोल ही बहुत कम था सोसाइटी में, बस घर में और घर के बच्चों में और अपने बिरादरी में ही they were restricted to that kind of life. And as I said, you know, wife beating को कोई crime मानेगा ही नहीं. Women herself will not say that it is a crime or a cruelty. Because ये तो ठीक है ना, she has called it upon herself because she was not taking care of the household or she had not done something that she was supposed to do. खाना लेट बना दिया, बच्चों को नहलाया नहीं किसी दिन, तो husband thrashed her. So this is justified. So बहुत सारे ऐसे crimes हैं जिसकी visibility ही नहीं थी, जिसको अब हम लोग crime मानने लग गए हैं. So this could be another reason why crimes have become or the crime rate have become. So it is very important to see the entire life cycle of a woman. She faces crime or atrocities at every stage. बच्चे जब होती है तब एक डिफरेंट तरह का atrocity है, बड़ी हो जाती है, she's getting married, she's working, or let's say she's getting educated. So crime तो हमेशा जुड़ा हुआ है. It is just that, you know, certain nature of crime जो है वो change हो जाता है, form उसकी change हो जाती है, and then certain crimes get visibility, certain crimes don't get visibility.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your wonderful lecture, very informative. रेनू मैम, मैं आपसे बस एक लाइन में ही मैं आपसे जानना चाहती हूँ कि जैसे कि सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट केस 2013 जो है वो आया, लेकिन उसके बावजूद जो है विमेन्स के पास नॉलेज है लेकिन वो जा नहीं पा रहे. क्यों? ऐसा क्यों? इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें इंक्लूड हैं कि इससे क्या क्या कहता है, लेकिन फिर भी वो उसके प्रति क्यों इतनी सजग नहीं है? मेंटली प्रेशर, घर का प्रेशर या सोसाइटी का प्रेशर? मैम आप म्यूट.
Sorry. What I'm saying is I couldn't hear you properly. Can you just repeat your question?
मैम
Your voice was very feeble. हाँ.
कुछ नहीं है, हम वैसे बात कर रहे हैं कि जैसे कि 2013 वाला जो एक्ट है, इसके जरिए बोथ राइट जो है वाइड एक बहुत स्कोप जो है बढ़ा है विमेंस के प्रोटेक्शन के लिए, लेकिन इसमें समटाइम्स जो है विमेंस के पास नॉलेज है लेकिन फिर भी वो उसका ज्यादा यूज नहीं कर पाती है, लेकिन कई बार एक मिसयूज भी बहुत ज्यादा हो जाता है आज की सोसाइटी में. गर्ल्स का एनवायरनमेंट है कि जैसे अफेयर कहीं हो रहे, शादी कहीं हो रही है, तो कुछ और भी बहुत तरह की.
उर्मिल जी, समाव आपकी वॉइस ही मुझ तक नहीं पहुंच रही है. आपका ना वॉइस सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है मुझे ठीक से. There's some disturbance, I think, somewhere. Suji, if you are able to hear her, can you repeat it? What she's asking? मुझे उनका आवाज नहीं सुनाई दे रहा. आपका क्लियर है वॉइस. So if you can just repeat what she's.
Yeah, I mean, I think her question is that despite the act being there in place, despite women knowing about this act, why is it that women are not able to take benefit of this act? But at the same time, there's also misuse of this act by women.
Okay. हाँ, Urmil ji, it's a complex question to answer because personally, my view is if we want to improve this situation, if we want to make our girls more stronger or sensible, then we have to, not only girls, other side also, that is even more important because हमारा जो social conditioning है ना, हम अपने बेटों का, हालांकि अब तो हम बेटे बेटियों को थोड़ा बराबर में पालते हैं, अदरवाइज बराबर में पालते हैं, लेकिन अभी भी बहुत फर्क है. जो सोशल कंडीशनिंग है ना, वो जो पैट्रियाटिक तरीका है बिहेव करने का, एक वो मेल शोविनिज्म है और वो मेल फीमेल जेंडर में जो फर्क वो कहाँ से आता है? घरों से आता है. तो एक्चुअली हमारी बहुत बड़ी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि हम अपने बेटों को अच्छी तरह पालें, उनको समझाएं कि अदर सेक्स को, फीमेल्स को कैसे हैंडल करना है. ठीक है, लॉ इज इन प्लेस, लॉज भी है, आईपीसी भी है, अभी वी आर एट मच बेटर प्लेस इन कंपैरिजन टू से 16 और भवी देवी के साथ जो हुआ। और आज तक आप अनफॉर्चुनेट देखिए चीजें हमारा लीगल सिस्टम का, आज तक भवी देवी को जस्टिस नहीं मिला है। शी हैज लॉस्ट हर हस्बैंड, आउट ऑफ द 5 रेपिस्ट 4 हैव डाइड, सो बट शी इज स्टिल फाइटिंग। तो हमको जो अवेयरनेस और जो हमें एक सोशल क्या कहना चाहिए अपलिफ्टमेंट है ना, वो लेडीज को ही ये उठाना पड़ेगा जम्मा, हमें ही सुधार करना पड़ेगा। जब तक हम सुधार नहीं करेंगे, हम अपने बेटे को अच्छी तरह से नहीं पालेंगे कि आप दूसरे जेंडर को कैसे ठीक से रखें, हाउ टू रिस्पेक्ट देम, वेदर शी इज अ सिस्टर और अ वाइफ और अ मदर और whosoever in whatever capacity she is there in the family। ये बहुत ही जरूरी है कि हम इस इशू को वहां पर एड्रेस करें। लॉज को यूज करने के लिए भी लड़कियों को अगर अवेयरनेस आनी है, वो तभी आएगी ना जब उनको इतना सपोर्ट देंगे, इतना खुलापन देंगे कि हाँ भाई आपको कुछ हो रहा है, पहले तो आपको समझना है, दूसरा आपको वी आर विद यू, द सपोर्ट इज देयर ऑफ द फैमिली, ऑफ द सोसाइटी। सो वो बहुत जरूरी है, वो मुझे लग रहा है अभी भी मिसिंग है। आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि हम प्रोग्रेस नहीं करें, हम प्रोग्रेस कर रहे हैं डेफिनेटली। नाउ द चिल्ड्रन आर रेज्ड ऑलमोस्ट इक्वली, बट अगर आप अपने आप से ही पूछें, अभी भी फर्क है, घरों में अभी भी फर्क है, और वो माइंडसेट को बदलना हमारी जिम्मेवारी है। तो ये भी काम फीमेल्स को ही करना पड़ेगा। अगर हम सुधार चाहते हैं ना, तो पहले हमें अपने घरों में सुधार करना पड़ेगा। एज अ मदर इन लॉ, एज अ मदर, एज आप व्हेन यू आर रेजिंग योर सन, व्हेन यू आर गेटिंग अ डॉटर इन लॉ, यू हैव टू टेक दैट प्रॉमिस के जो पिछले टाइम से हो रहा था वो अब घर में नहीं होगा। लाइक शी विल बी गिवन अ इक्वल प्लेस इन द फैमिली। तो अगर हम ये करना शुरू कर देंगे, उनको ओपननेस देंगे, उनको एक प्लेटफॉर्म देंगे कि भाई आपके साथ हैं, so definitely I think this reporting would improve, and in university system also, because we are catering to yours a girl college, तो एक समझाना, अवेयरनेस, लोगों को बताना, तो वो जो डिस्प्लेइंग ऑफ द इंफॉर्मेशन, शेयरिंग द इंफॉर्मेशन, आप जब उनको एडमिशन के टाइम पे वो अवेयरनेस बहुत जरूरी है, उनको बताना भी पड़ेगा कि ये सब, बहुत सी लड़कियों को तो पता ही नहीं होता है, या वो आगे भी आती हैं तो वो डर के मारे आगे नहीं आती हैं। वी हैव सीन केसेस वेयर द केसेस आर वेरी सीरियस, बट एज वी अप्रोच द डिपार्टमेंट फॉर कंफर्मेशंस कि आपका स्टूडेंट है, वो बच्चे का आया था कि हमें ये केस परस्यू ही नहीं करना है, तो क्या हुआ, इट इज वेरी क्लियर कि उनको डिपार्टमेंट से प्रेशर आया कि आप केस वापस ले लो। अब आईसीसी के भी कुछ दायरे हैं, आप जाके वहां पे, यू आर नॉट पुलिस, आपके पास वो राइट्स नहीं है कि आप कहीं पे धमक जाएं और बोलें कि भाई ये केस क्यों वापस ले रही हैं, आप इनको क्यों डरा रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो तो फिर कंप्लेनेंट का ही हक है या कंप्लेनेंट का ही राइट है। अगर वो एक बार कंप्लेन कर रही हैं फिर वापस ले रही हैं, तो आईसीसी कैन नॉट काइंड ऑफ इंटरवीन, वी कैन जस्ट टॉक टू हर एंड वी कैन ट्राई टू फिगर आउट। एक स्टेज के बाद हम लोग इंटरफेयर नहीं कर सकते हैं। तो बहुत सारे इश्यूज हैं, इट्स नॉट वेरी सिंपल, इट्स अ कॉम्प्लेक्स सिनेरियो। इम्प्रूव हुई हैं चीजें डेफिनेटली, बट अ लॉट टू बी डन अगेन एट फैमिली लेवल, एट सोसाइटी लेवल। कानून से कुछ नहीं होने वाला है, कानून है, अभी कानून है, दैट इज अ गुड, वी आर एट अ गुड प्लेस विद दैट, बिकॉज एटलीस्ट कानून है। उनकी अवेयरनेस बहुत जरूरी है, बच्चों को, बच्चियों को पता होना चाहिए कि भाई ये सब है, पहले तो होता ही नहीं था, सो अभी तो वो है, तो वो अवेयरनेस उनको देना, प्लस वो माहौल देना, वो उनको स्ट्रेंथ देना, चाहे हमारे एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन है, चाहे फैमिली है, चाहे सोसाइटी है। आई थिंक दैट विल हेल्प। सो आई होप I have answered your question to some extent.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Now I officially vote of thanks के लिए I invite ICSE coordinator Dr. Subha Sinani. Subha ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. On behalf of SPM College, it is my privilege to the vote of thanks on this occasion, and my heart goes on to thank Professor Deswal and Dr. Suchi Kapuria. You have spared your invaluable time to enlighten us and enhance our understanding on the subject by your commendable talk. I want to extend my deep gratitude and thanks to our principal, Professor Sadhna Sharma, who is always very supportive. Then I want to thank the torchbearer of this event, the convener of ICC committee, Dr. Urmil Vat. You have really conducted this program. And then my thanks to Sarabji for the technical support, but not the least, my thanks to participants, my students, my colleagues. It was a very good webinar, and I'm both of you are very enlightened us on this topic. And we would again like to call you offline and hear your
मैम हम लोग ऑफलाइन बुलाएंगे मैम को कॉलेज में, बच्चों से सामने फेस टू फेस इंटरेक्शन करेंगे तो वो ज्यादा अच्छा लगेगा हम लोगों को भी।
Thank you, Shubhaji, and thank you, Urmilji, for this opportunity. And it was a pleasure to meet you, Suchi.
Thank you.
And this was a
Same here.
platform. We were introduced to each other, so it was a pleasure.
It was a
So
pleasure.
I think
here too.
I'll call it off now if we are done with it. Chaliye, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Professor.
मिलेंगे आपसे कभी कॉलेज में बुलाएंगे आपको।
Chaliye, okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
मैम एग्जिट कर जाए?
यस अभिषेक हो गया। थैंक यू सो मच अभिषेक, थैंक यू।
ओके मैम, ओके मैम, ओके, टेक केयर मैम, बाय मैम।
थैंक यू मैम।
थैंक्स अ लॉट, थैंक यू।
आगे भी इस तरह का अगर वेबिनार होता है या लेक्चर मैम तो सूचित अवश्य करें, हम जुड़ना चाहेंगे। बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण टॉपिक पे चर्चाएं हुई, कुछ नेटवर्क इशू थे बट अच्छी जानकारियां मिली है। यूट्यूब पर तो मैं सब्सक्राइब कर रखा हूं, आगे भी मुझे जानकारी मिल ही जाएगी। नोटिफिकेशन आ जाते हैं तो ट्विटर हैंडल आपका जो बना हुआ है कॉलेज का मैं देख लेता हूं और देखने के बाद वहां से लिंक से जुड़ जाता हूं। बट अगर कभी ऐसा हो तो अवश्य सूचित करें, ऑनलाइन से अवश्य जुड़ना चाहेंगे। मैं पटना बिहार से हूँ मैम।
थैंक यू सो मच।